This is the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast. Welcome back. I'm your host, Jackson Neill, here for episode number 107. Today I'm going to be talking with Marloe about some of her latest music. She's from Australia. Really fun conversation that I had with her. But first, I just want to remind everyone that this podcast is available on all of your favorite platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and SoundCloud. It's also available on jacksonneillpodcast.com, the go-to spot for everything that I publish. Today's episode also has a video component. If you're on an audio-only platform and want to see the video, head over to the first link down in the show notes. So, on this episode, I talk with Marloe about her debut EP. It's a self-titled EP that is filled with some awesome pop music that I really enjoyed listening to. So I talked to her about making that. Also, being from Australia, her time over here in the US, and all this great stuff during this really wide-ranging interview. So, here's my conversation with her. You're in Australia now, and you're from Australia. Just what part of the country are you from?
I'm from Brisbane, so that's in Queensland, which is our state.
Okay, so I don't really know that much about Australia. So can you tell me a little bit about the town, I guess, of Brisbane and where you grew up, I guess?
Yeah, Brisbane's, well, I don't know. For other people in Australia, Brisbane's oh, you live in Brisbane, you're kind of considered more country, but it's not at all. It's so great. We've got beach, 40 minutes drive and I'm at the beach, 40 minutes drive I'm in the city, or I'm in the hinterland, so I don't know, farming areas. So it's good. You kind of have everything around you.
You're right in the middle of all of it.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I also don't know anything different. I've only lived in Brisbane in Australia, so I can't really compare it too much to anything else, but I love it.
Gotcha. So how big is it?
Pretty large. I mean, well, in Queensland, so Queensland's the state I'm from. Queensland is one of the biggest states in Australia, so yeah, it's pretty big. If you need to look up a map, I think people don't understand how big Australia is. If you look up Australia and put it over the US, you'll be like, oh, Australia is quite large.
Oh, really?
Yeah, people don't really understand that. And then when I lived in America, I would show my friends. I'm like, guys, it's a big place.
Yeah, I guess for us Americans, we just think, oh my God, Australia. It's oh, you're either from Sydney or Melbourne, and the rest is just the outback, right?
Yeah, and then you're just in the outback. Yeah, exactly.
So I read that you got started in music singing in an elementary school choir, right?
Yeah.
So when did you first start writing songs?
When I first started, well, I think for me I started writing poetry, probably in high school, all very kept to myself. I wouldn't share it with anyone at all. I just did it because it was a way to express myself. But I didn't start putting it into songs until I moved to America. Actually, I was studying in New York. And so when I was studying there, I started, dabbling in plucking out chords on the keyboard and kind of using the lyrics, I guess, I wrote and trying to make melodies to it. So it hasn't been something I've done my entire life. It's probably been something over the last 5 years, I guess.
Okay.
And then sometimes oh, I don't think I'm that bad at this.
Well, what was the first song that you decided to say, okay, I want to show some people this?
Oh, honestly, it wasn't even a full song. I think it was just a verse and a chorus, and it was something I've only shown a couple of friends. It was when I lived in New York, and we were all just, we're all very creative. We were at an acting school, so we were all kind of sharing our things, and it was about being homesick, I'm pretty sure, and yeah, I probably have it on my phone somewhere, but I actually don't even remember it that well, so.
Oh, really?
I'm in that.
Do you remember the first person you showed?
Yeah. So I remember one of the first persons I showed was my friend Clara. So she was one of my good friends there. So I remember talking to her about it because she also writes music. So I was like, oh, she'll be able to give me some perspective on this.
Gotcha. So you're talking about there. You moved to New York to go to this acting school. How did that? Tell me a little bit about that. How did you get into that?
Was what was it? Moved to New York in 2015, I think it was. Was it 2015? Yeah, end of 2015, started 2016, and basically I applied for this school, AMDA, But I didn't tell my parents that I applied. So I didn't think I would get in. So I was like, oh, I'll just apply. And then when they called me for an interview, I was like, oh, I should probably tell my parents now. So then I told them, and, we didn't really think anything of it. And then, when they called me, they're like, yeah, you got in. I was like, oh, cool. So now I'm moving to New York. So that was a bit of a shock for my parents, I think, because they knew that I loved it, but I don't think they realized I was like that serious about it. Then I picked up, moved to New York. So that was a wild time. And then I was there for like 3 years, I think it was, studying and living my best life.
So I find that crazy. I mean, so you applied to a school basically the other side of the world, and you didn't even tell your parents.
No, yeah, I don't know, I didn't want to tell anyone yet. I think when I first started doing all of this, it was really personal to me, like acting, singing, all of that. It was something I kept really close to me, so if I shared it and it didn't work out, it would be harder for me to deal with. So I was like, all right, I'll apply, and if I don't get in, no one knows. So I got in, so then obviously I moved.
There you go. So what did you study exactly at this acting school?
So I studied musical theater, so singing, dancing, and acting. So I love all of it. So it was good. It was awesome to be able to, because I loved singing and I knew that, but I also loved acting. I was like, how can I do both at the same time? And that was it.
A perfect blend right there. So you go to school there, you said for 3 years. You study musical theater. You're blending acting and singing. When did you decide, okay, I want to go strictly into the music?
Honestly, I don't think that happened until after I graduated. After graduating, you kind of get hit with like the reality of everything, and you're like, oh, wow, what do I want? What do I want to do? Because when you're in that studying world, like you're just so immersed in what you're doing. You're like, yeah, I love this. This is awesome. And then when you're not doing that every day, you kind of get to take a better look at what you do really want for yourself. And so then I started writing a lot more. So it was probably like within the first few months after graduating that I started to realize that. And then I got contacted by Jason and his team, the people that I'm working with, and that kind of just escalated it all real quick.
So you have this EP out, your self-titled debut EP. When did you start working on that?
So actually like a year ago today. It's like, I think I was in Nashville recording it like last week, a year ago. So I flew over. Well, a bit before I flew over there, I obviously was working on stuff. But this time last year, I worked in Nashville. I was there for a week. We smashed out 4 songs in 3 days, and it was intense. Like my brain, by the end of the week, I was like, oh my gosh, but it was awesome. It was so good. And then, I've kind of just been working on crafting that up since then.
Sounds like those 4 songs came in the span of just a couple days in studio sessions.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had ideas about what I wanted to write about. So, like, The Day I Knew I Needed You, that was something I wrote down probably months before that. And I was like, oh, I like the sound of that. Don't know where I want to go with it, but I know I want to do something with it. So I had all different ideas and lyrics and even little melodies here and there. But then, you get in the studio and you come together and kind of just play off each other. And then, we crafted them all up. In 3 days, we wrote and recorded them. And then on the 4th day, I did like all the backing vocals and stuff.
Gotcha. So what was it like being in Nashville? I guess, you're from Brisbane, Australia, then you studied in New York. What was it like being in this completely different city to now record your first your debut?
Yeah, that was wild. I'd never been, actually, no. I'd been to Nashville like once before that very quickly, and I was like amazed at how cool it was. I wasn't expecting it at all. I was like, oh my God, this place is sick. Like, I actually think I could live in Nashville like in a second. So that was pretty surreal, actually. Like, going there and recording that, I was like, wow, like this is insane.
Yeah, I've heard so much great things about the city of Nashville. I've interviewed a couple artists, and everyone's like, being in that city is just inspiring.
Oh my gosh, yeah, because everywhere you go, there's a different person, singing in a different bar, and everyone is so talented. It's just got this energy about it. I don't know, you can't even describe it until you go there, and then you're like, oh yeah, cool, I get it.
I still have to go there for my first time, so I'm definitely looking forward to doing that sometime in the near future, I'm hoping. So you only recorded these over a span of a couple days. Did you have these songs written before then, or was it just a complete creation in those 3 days?
it was complete creation. Like, you know, there were some lyrics here and there that I was like, oh, this would work perfectly. But they, you know, we completely just sat down and was like, all right, let's get started. And yeah, it was very intense.
I mean, that's what I'm definitely picking up on that. I mean, what was something, I guess, you learned about being a songwriter or yourself as a songwriter in those couple of days having and producing these 4 songs?
Yeah, I think it was honestly just to trust myself. I think before that, I had, you know, written stuff here and there, but I didn't know what was good enough and what wasn't. So then when working with these people who write for a lot of people who do this every single day, and, you know, you come up with an idea and they're like, yeah, that's awesome. Oh, that would work so well. You're like, oh, okay, yeah. And you can kind of just back yourself a bit more. Mm-hmm. So then since coming out of that now when I'm writing, I'm like, no, this is good. And like, this does sound good, rather than second guessing it, I guess.
Yeah, it gives you that kind of confidence to actually say, oh, I'm doing this right.
Yeah, exactly.
So going into this EP, you know, you have your tracks, The Day I Knew I Needed You, The Future Is Now, Remember Me, You Don't Need Me. I guess is there a common thread throughout these tracks for someone who hasn't listened to it yet and wants to check them out?
Yeah, I think for me it was probably the main theme was like unwavering love and heartache and kind of like balancing that out. I think we all go through it, and I wanted them to be songs that people could listen to no matter who they are and can kind of find some common ground and relate to them. So yeah, and they're all based off true experiences in my life, whether, you know, some of these experiences are like completely like years apart, but yeah, they're definitely all based around kind of like these light bulb moments that I've had in my life where I'm like, oh, that's what this means. And that kind of changed and like shaped who I am today.
What was the furthest away memory you had of a song you kind of created?
I think it would be the song You Don't Know Me. I think it would be that. That was written, like the idea behind that was something that I think happened to me in high school.
Okay.
So a long time.
Some years separating that. Was it hard to be able to like go back and try to recreate what you were almost feeling at that point?
No, because it was something that was so like pivotal to me. So it was basically about when I was like, oh, I want to go study musical theater and all of that sort of stuff. Having friends, hearing about friends basically being like, oh, she can't do that. She's not good enough. She won't make it. And so it was kind of about, well, you don't really know who I am, so how could you say that? And I feel like that was a deep emotion that I had kept as a young girl. So I think that was easy, honestly. Going back to that, I was like, oh, I remember what that felt like.
I think you even hear about it, like, no matter what profession, even like athletes talk about that. They're like, oh yeah, I remember this middle school coach was like, you're not going to be anything. I'm in the NBA now.
Yeah, exactly. Now look at me. Yeah.
So that, yeah, I think it's that, and like it's also kind of like you get back to that relatable aspect, the relatable thing that other people have felt.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like everyone has been in a place where someone doesn't believe in them as much as they believe in themselves, which at the end of the day, you're the only person that really needs to believe in yourself. But it does help if other people do as well.
Yeah, it certainly does. So with this being, your first project, your debut as an artist, your first 4 songs, what did you want people to like get from it, from their first listen, and learn from you about you as an artist, I guess?
Honestly, I want people to listen to it, and I just want them to feel different from when they began listening. Whether they hate it or they love it, as long as I provoke some sort of emotion that is different to how they felt when they started listening, that's all that matters to me. Whether it helps them, figure things out. Like, I know personally when I listen to a song that really connects with me, I'm like, oh, it like helps me figure things out. And I'm like, I think about things from a different perspective. So if that can happen with my audience, that would be amazing. Also just to know that like, you're not alone. I feel like everyone goes through, especially when it comes to like heartbreak and things like that. We all go through it to whatever scale. And I think sometimes just having a song to listen to know other people go through the exact same thing and you're not alone in those emotions. I don't know. I definitely want my listeners to feel like that. I'm there.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool, it's kind of a cool thing. I think when you get these relatable tracks, it almost is like, oh, this is someone I personally know going through the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have this out, you're officially debuted as an artist. Just how are you feeling, and what else do you have coming up in 2019?
I'm feeling really excited, actually. This EP, it's my first EP, so like coming out, I had no idea what to expect with it. But the feedback from it all has been incredible. So I'm like, oh, great. That's exactly what we want. My new single is getting mixed as we speak. So that's really exciting. I'm beyond excited about that, and have a bunch of other writing sessions and things that I'm working on. So hopefully just getting new music out there and sharing my story with the world.
Are you working on music now, I guess, back home in Australia?
Yeah. So I'm working in Australia at the moment. I definitely want to come back over to Nashville. Any excuse to get over there, but obviously music would be perfect. So I'm working. My new single coming out is called Ruminate. So that hopefully is coming out in the next couple of months.
Okay, so we'll have to keep our eyes out for that one.
Yeah, keep eyes and ears open for that one. I'll definitely let you know when it comes out.
Again, a big thank you to Marloe for coming on to the podcast. Remember, go down into the show notes on whatever platform you're on right now. There, you'll find links to listen to her music as well as to follow her on social media. That way you can stay up to date, see what she has going on, see any new music she releases, as well as any live dates possibly. No matter where she's touring, whether it's in Australia, the US, or anywhere in between. And that'll wrap it up for this episode of Anything Goes with Jackson Neill. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to subscribe and rate this podcast on your favorite platforms, as that does a lot to help grow the show. Remember, new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. For more episodes, go down into the show notes and visit the link to jacksonneillpodcast.com. There you'll find all of the episodes to this podcast, as well as the Jackson Neill Music and Sports Podcast. New episodes of the Music Podcast on Sundays, with the Sports Podcast coming on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you're a big fan of the show, maybe consider becoming a subscriber on Patreon. For just a couple dollars a month, you can get access to bonus content from my interviews right here on Anything Goes, including today's with Marloe, where I ask her about favorite music at the moment, a Broadway show I should go see, and all that really fun stuff. So on Patreon, you also get access to bonus segments from both my sports and music podcasts. I write, record, and produce these podcasts myself as a full-time college student, so any little bit of support really does go a long way. Link to Patreon down in the show notes. If you want to stay up to date on everything I'm doing, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at JacksonNeil20. Today's music is by Analog by Nature with their song CDK Sunday. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you all next time.